level, and that's kind of low. So I'll give you a little boost on this. Dave, what's your last name?
It's Venturella.
Dave Venturella. And in all coinky dinky, you evidently went to high school with Andy Quinnell, huh?
I did many years ago.
So that puts you a Bloom Trail guy, right?
You got it.
And that is on, is that on Sauk Trail Road, or what's the road? Yeah, it's on Sauk Trail, right?
South Chicago Heights.
Yeah, Sauk Trail, and what's the north-south street? That would be, geez, it's been a long time.
It's been a long time.
Evidently, you don't live near the high school anymore, huh?
No,
All right.
I don't.
So Dave Venturella, Dave, your position is?
Senior Vice President of Business Development for the GEO Group.
For the GEO Group. And what does the GEO Group do?
Well, the GEO Group is a real estate investment trust that specializes in designing, financing, building, and operating correction facilities, detention facilities, halfway houses, provides transportation, medical services, and electronic monitoring to our federal, state, and local clients and international clients as well.
So you're talking halfway houses, detention centers, whatever. The government outsources a lot of this anymore and doesn't they don't GC their own facility. They're not building their own facility. That's where you guys come in?
Correct. I wouldn't say they totally outsource that service, but when they do, because they can't afford to build a new facility or they can't upgrade their existing facilities, they look to the private sector for other options.
And what about the maintenance and the ongoing operations? Is that part of what you're talking about, or are you just talking about building it and then the government runs it?
Everything, soup to nuts.
Soup to nuts. So it is a design, build, and maintain usually.
Right, as well as the finance piece of it, which is pretty important because a lot of governments can't come up with the upfront money to pay for the entire cost of the project, and so the GEO Group will finance those projects, and then the government or the client is not charged until the first person comes into the facility. So
it's a REIT, R-E-I-T, Real Estate Investment Trust. Now, is that publicly traded, or?
Yes, it is.
It's publicly traded. So from, how this is structured is that you guys have a couple of ideas, or at least one idea here for Lake County. It's on the front page. We'll get to the opposition here in a moment. But what do you think there's an opportunity for here in Lake County?
Well, I think the opportunity is to bring some economic development to the city of Gary and to the surrounding area. Our project, if it's successful, is about $65 to $80 million construction project. It'll take about 18 to 24 months to build. That will require hundreds of jobs, construction jobs, trades, plumbers, electricians, carpenters, you name it, all coming from the local area. And then once that facility is constructed, we will employ about 200 to 250 people, full-time positions, to operate the facility 24/7. And those jobs, those wages, will be determined by the U.S. Department of Labor. They have a regional wage determination for the area, for Lake County, and that is usually significantly above minimum wage, which is some of the issues that we've heard about the jobs that we provide at the GEO Group, that they're low paying, high turnover. But because this is going to be hopefully a federal project, we have certain guidelines that the government prescribes to us, part of our contract, and we have to pay wages that meet or exceed the minimum standards set by the U.S. Department of Labor.
So, federal government, let's just look at this project. Right now, the federal government is flying a lot of people out of Gary, from what I understand.
Yeah, that's correct. They use that airport, and they detain about 1,000 people any given day in Illinois, Wisconsin, and Indiana, and they house them in county jails throughout those three states. And then when it's time to remove them, they take them from those facilities, and it could be 90 miles away or more, and put them on a bus, take them to the Gary airport, put them on a plane, and send them either out of the country or to another location in the country.
So the one that the federal government, and obviously they have indicated to you guys that there's an interest in like a holding area or a detention center to hold numbers and make this system more efficient. Now, is that how this goes? They indicated to you a need.
They did. About 4 years ago, they issued a request for information, and they sent it out and said anybody interested in siting a facility, and they gave very specific parameters, couldn't be more than 50-mile radius from the downtown immigration office, and it had to be a certain size, and it had to meet certain conditions and standards. And they allowed private sector companies to come and at least submit our ideas on it, and we submitted our ideas, and we think the location in Gary it meets all of their requirements.
So I guess I'm just trying to get where the competing forces are here, okay?
Sure.
I mean, obviously, the federal government is us, basically, but there's a need to house either dangerous criminals or people who have immigration problems or whatever their federal problem is that they
Right.
had. They got to be held somewhere, and then sometimes they're moved around to testify elsewhere, or stand for charges elsewhere, or they're deported. So, I mean, is that what this detention center is? Is it also a holding center for deportations?
Well, it would be able to accommodate any foreign-born national that was arrested by the immigration authorities, and depending on where they are in their immigration proceedings, that facility would be able to accommodate. So the facility provides hearings, courtrooms. There will be federal immigration judges that will hear cases of those individuals that are detained at that facility. Some of those individuals may already have a deportation order, and then they're just being held there for that removal flight that could come out of the Gary airport. And others just start their process. And so, again, it is a processing center, not a prison. There is a big difference between a processing center and a prison. And really, the biggest difference is that people are going through some stage of their immigration proceedings at that facility. And typically, the average stay at a facility like that is between 30 to 60 days. It varies region to region.
All right, so you were going to go for some sort of a variance last night at the Gary City Council meeting. You withdrew that, correct?
No,
That's what it says here in the paper.
Well,
yeah.
can't read.
Okay.
Trust everything you read. So the hearing is actually next Tuesday.
Okay.
And so we've submitted an application, and we will present our case to the BZA and go through that process, which the public is welcome to attend, and certainly will have public comment. Back in November of last year, we did submit an application, and we withdrew at that point because it was clear that we didn't do a good job with the community outreach. And certainly the mayor of Gary had changed her position. She had been very supportive of the project publicly, and at the 11th hour, she withdrew her support. And with that came a lot of opposition, vocal opposition to the project. So we thought probably a good time to withdraw the application, rethink our strategy. Also, considering that the mayor withdrew her support, how do we move this project forward? Because we thought the merits of the project were good. It was a good opportunity for the city of Gary. And again, we thought it met all of the requirements that the federal immigration authorities had laid out a few years before.
So what's the advantage to Gary and to Lake County for, I think, what is it, like a 788-bed facility? It's pretty large.
Right.
I mean, let's start on the positives of this. What does it do for our area?
Well, again, it's going to create $65 to $80 million in jobs, construction jobs. We're going to invest. GEO is going to finance that facility. We're going to reach out to local companies to help build this facility. And again, it's about 18 to 24 months. So there's going to be a lot of jobs needed to build that facility in a 2-year period.
All right, let's talk about this part right now. As you well know, this is a union-built facility. 3 of my main sponsors are the electricians, iron workers, and laborers. So they're listening right now, and they're going to go, well, how do we know that GEO's not going to come in, get this contract, and they're going to bring a bunch of people from out of town, a bunch of travelers, whether it's union or not, and, ace us out of this?
Right. Well, first of all, that's not how we do things. Second, we recognize that this is a union town. I mean, I grew up in this area, so I clearly understand that. And so we know that we're going to be working with the unions on this project. And we know that they're going to compete, and they're very interested in it. And so we'd be happy to sit down and talk to folks now about the project, about the requirements that we have, about the skills that we're going to need to develop this project. Bringing people from the outside is just not cost effective for us.
Okay, so just to be clear, and
Sure.
I'm going to do what I tell people I don't like about George Stephanopoulos and Chuck, the guy on Meet the Press, but I want to get it clear because
All right.
the union guys are going to want some clarity on this. So is it a union job?
I wouldn't characterize it as a union job. It's a job, and it'll be an opportunity for unions to compete
For union contractors to compete with whoever bids on these things.
That's
Okay.
right. Correct.
So let's go back to this now. What are some of you've built these elsewhere, right?
Yes, all over the country.
Okay, you got the one in North Carolina, or is it?
We have a facility in North Carolina. We have
Tell us about the facility in North Carolina. How old is it? How many beds? That kind of stuff.
that facility is probably less than 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
It is a prison, the one in North Carolina, and it was built for the Federal Bureau of Prisons to hold the population out of the District of Columbia. So it's probably right around 12 to 1,500 beds. Don't quote me on that, but it's a rather large facility built in Wilton, North Carolina, and it serves a federal population.
All right, give us an example of anything that would be similar to the Gary project.
Well, I think any of our immigration detention facilities that we run, there's a few in Texas, a couple in California, and one in Florida where our corporate offices are located. So they're very residential in its layout. That's because the federal immigration authorities require that in their detention standards. So it's not what people think. People use the term prison to cover everything, but it's not a prison. People, again, are there for very short periods of time. They're there to go through their immigration removal process. They have access to attorneys. They have access to their foreign consulates since they are foreign nationals. And the immigration authorities encourage a lot of outside intervention from social groups and others to support the individuals going through those proceedings.
Let me just I got to give a legal ID top of the hour. You're listening to AM 1230 WJOB in Hammond, Indiana. Dave Venturella is here, and he is with the GEO Group, and he's talking about a 788-bed facility that his group is proposing for the Gary Airport. They're calling it the Gary Detention Center. Is that the right way to couch this thing? Is that it? Was that the name that you're going with?
It's a detention center.
Yeah, Gary Detention Center. Last night at the Gary City Council, a number of folks came out to protest against this. Ryan and I asked, Harlow set this up for Dave to come in, and let's just find out what this is all about.